Hello, everyone. Good morning. We will start in a few minutes, but if you can all mute your microphones, please. We'll start in a few minutes, okay? Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second edition of Cambridge Experience in 2020. My name is Alberta Lima, and I will be your Master of Ceremony for the day. I am Business Development Manager at Cambridge Assessment English, and I am based in Rio de Janeiro, where I am speaking from. So don't mind my accent, okay? You will see. Before we start, here are a few suggestions to help you get the most of our sessions today. Some technical advice. We recommend headphones to get better quality audio and to hear better. We kindly ask you all to mute your microphones. Try not to have anything else running, and if you can, switch off any other programs. Today, we will be focusing on social and lifelong learning through three wonderful talks from our dear special guests, Alberto Costa, speaking from São Paulo, Jasmine Silver, speaking from Cambridge, and Mirella Ramaciotti, speaking from São Paulo as well. During the presentations, you can ask questions by using the chat box. We have volunteers who will be helping the presenter, and questions will be answered at the end of each talk. As you have probably seen in the agenda, we will have short breaks between the sessions. Those are for you to really take a break get a drink, stretch your legs, and then come back for our next sessions. During these breaks and throughout the event, you will be able to connect with all participants using Wakelet. Make sure you answer the challenges there and make the most of this networking space. The link is in the chat box now. Can you please post the link of Wakelet on the chat box? I hear someone with the microphone open. Please, can you just mute your microphones? Today, everyone, is also a day to celebrate, as this year Colégio Farroupilha celebrates its 10th anniversary as a Cambridge Assessment English Authorized Center. Congratulations, Colégio Farroupilha. Cambridge Assessment English also prepared a big surprise for you for Colégio Farroupilha, and we want to offer you, this is a great surprise, I guess, this plaque as a token of recognition. Thank you. So we want to offer Colégio Farroupilha a plaque as a token of recognition of an extremely important and strong partnership that is very much valued by Cambridge. We prepared this especially for your 10th anniversary, Colégio Farroupilha. Thank you for this very important partnership with us. I hope you like it. We will be sending you, of course, this later, okay? Now, the Pedagogical Director of Colégio Farroupilha, Marícia Ferri, wants to welcome you all to this wonderful event. Bear with us for a moment. We'll be sharing the content soon.
Uma tripla a partir do 1º do 10, né?
Welcome to Cambridge Experience 2020. We are very happy and proud of celebrating the 10th anniversary of your partnership with the Cambridge Assessment English, part of the University of Cambridge. Throughout these years, thousands of students have benefited from the excellent level of proficiency in English, a fundamental 21st century competence. I would also like to thank everybody who has directly or indirectly been involved in this project. The University of Cambridge, our preparation centers, all the teachers, and mainly the tourist candidates. I hope you enjoy the event and make the most of today's learning to help you in your teaching and your school environment. My warm regards.
Thank you, Marícia. Now, Luciane Calcara, Cambridge Exams and Foreign Languages Manager at Colégio Farroupilha, will tell us a little about the school trajectory as a Cambridge Authorized Center. Lu, please welcome. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, now what an emotional and touching surprise, Roberta. Thank you very much. Thank you also, Marícia, for your kind words. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here with us. It's really great to have people from all over Brazil, so many people from all over Brazil, some other people from other countries as well, to celebrate our 10th anniversary of our partnership with Cambridge Assessment English. As I've already been introduced, I'm Luciane Calcara, the Foreign Languages Department Manager and the Cambridge Assessment English Center Exams Manager at Colégio Farroupilha, which is a private school of basic education in the south of Brazil. Let me just, some technical, here. Sorry. Colégio Farroupilha was founded by German immigrants in 1886 to offer a school with European standards of education to German families established here in Porto Alegre, in the south of Brazil. Since then, Colégio Farroupilha has been faithful to its principles of educational excellence conceived by its founders. Currently, we've got more than 3,000 students divided into two units, Três Figueiras branch and Correia Lima, which is a school branch wholly dedicated to teaching students in poor socio-economic conditions. And there we have around 400 students. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Considering our mission, which is educar para formar cidadãos competentes, éticos e globais, and Cambridge's mission, which is we help people learn English and prove their skills to the world, Farroupilha understood that a partnership with Cambridge Assessment English would help us provide our students with excellent English language teaching in the school. For this reason, in 2010, we had this partnership with Cambridge Assessment English, and we implemented this project, this Cambridge project in our school. Actually, it was a pioneering project which incorporated preparation for Cambridge qualifications in the school curriculum. The project itself consists of students being prepared and taking exams from the 4th year onwards with no additional cost to the families. Our objectives. We also understood that with this partnership, we would be able to bring benefits to our institution, to educators, and mainly benefits to our dearest students. So benefits to the students, what we could see and we can see, okay? Our students, they are taught according to the international standards of the Cambridge European Framework of Reference. Our students are divided into classes according to their level of language proficiency. Also, we manage their performance because every year, as they take a Cambridge exam, we can see their performance individually, and then we can also have group vision of their performance as well. And we consider these evaluations, as they are external evaluations, we consider them a lot, and we work a lot on that when we have this data coming from their results. And then obviously we work on future actions depending on their results. This is something that has happened to us considering this 10 years of Cambridge at Colégio Farroupilha. When we started in 2010, when we started our project in 2010, in the final year of high school, just the third year of high school here in Brazil, we had 45% of our students taking key and preliminary qualifications, 43% of the students taking first certificate, Cambridge Advanced, only 3 students, and 3% of the students, and no one taking CME. In 2017, with all these our students taking all these projects, going through this project that started in 2010, and then we were in the fourth year of the school year. What we had when we got to the third year of high school was that we didn't have any candidates, any students taking PET or PET, key or preliminary. 25% first, 29% of our students advanced level, and 46% of our students taking proficiency level. So this was a real, there we really understood that this has been a very successful project in our school.
Do one more minute, okay? Sorry.
Okay. Throughout these years, we've been increasing the number of students taking CAE and CPE. And nowadays, we've got, in 2020, we've got 188 students being prepared for CAE and 142 students being prepared for CPE. Other benefits, loads of other benefits that I won't be able to go over now, but I'll make my presentation for you. But I just would like to show a video of, what is it? Very quickly here. A video that came from Cambridge, just to celebrate our 10th anniversary. Just 1 second.
Não vou assistir isso aqui, não. Muito ruim.
Please mute your microphones. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Fran Woodward and I'm the Chief Executive of Assessment English. And I'd like to thank you all at Colégio Farroupilha for your commitment over the last decade. What an amazing milestone. I'd like to say congratulations. Over the last 10 years, you've played a really important part to helping us deliver our mission, which is all about helping people learn English and prove their skills to the world. I had the pleasure last year to meet Luciano Calcari when she was at IATEFL in Liverpool. It was really great to hear some of the challenges you faced, but also some of the success stories, particularly about the levels of English language learning improving, soaring even, through the introduction of Cambridge exams. The figures are really impressive and would only be possible through great collaboration between ourselves and you. So I'd like to say thank you very much for your continued motivation, dedication, and of course, your professionalism. Here's to another 10 years and beyond. Congratulations.
Hi, I'm Kelly Tavares, Country Head for Cambridge Assessment here in Brazil. It's time to celebrate. 10 years ago, Colégio Farroupilha decided to embrace the challenge to become an authorized center, integrating Cambridge English qualification into its curriculum. This was not only an innovation, but also a very brave step in order to achieve even better results aligned with international standards. It was a pioneering project that involved significant changes for the whole school community. For this reason, I would like to congratulate Farroupilha. Through hard work and dedication, the project has been a tremendous success story. many learners leave Farroupilha after completing their upper secondary studies with the Cambridge English Proficiency Certificate, the highest level of proficiency in language. And this will only open doors to higher education and the world of work. Congratulations on everything you have achieved. We're proud to be at your side on this journey. For another 10 years with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoy the whole event.
Thank you, Lou. Now, it's an amazing opportunity to be able to see Cambridge growth in Farroupilha. Thank you, Luciane. Finally, it's time for our first presentation. So the presentation title is Neuroscience and Learning, Evidence-Based Approach to Best Practices in the Classroom with Mirella Ramaciotti. Mirella, please welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Loud.
Very much. Okay. We have here for us a very welcoming start, and I hope you remember what nature has given us always in September. And enjoy with me a moment of peace, quiet, and celebration for this that we are living together today during times that have been so hard for all of us to process. I would like you to take a moment now and really connect to the joy of being alive, to the joy of witnessing another spring here in the South Hemisphere, and to celebrate the good things that we have, our health, our family, the knowledge that we share, the milestones that we have, the fortune to celebrate together. Please take a moment to say thanks. And with that, I invite you to go with me to the next slides. Okay, if you have been with me, the music should have stopped by now, but we are getting there. If you have read the abstract, you have seen these words that I purposefully left in bold because they are guiding here the objectives of our day. Our objectives today will be the challenges, the meaningful environment that we have to be careful with, cognitive and metacognitive strategies, and finally, evidence-based principles and best practices that should guide our learning and our teaching.
Mirella, I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but you are on presentation mode. We can see, yes, we can see the notes at the side. So
Here?
if you share your presentation, then we can see. Okay, now it's full screen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for telling me, Roberta. Oh, it's always good to count on this backstage help. All right, so going in. Here I have extracted from the abstract some proposal content that I left there. The content is here, and these are objectives for today. But before we start on the objectives, I would like to show you some views and perspective that I personally take on the topic that I bring to you today. Neuroscience and learning, and here's an analogy for you. As teachers, we're all always concerned about initiating our learners in the world of learning, because learning, purposefully done, is to be for the whole life, throughout life. And so I invite you to conceptualize learning as this small baby here, the little baby taking his first steps into the waters of knowledge. Neuroscience, and here's the icon for you, because this icon will be throughout the presentation for you to remember where learning has always been with us and should be in our minds. Neuroscience then would be a safety net. It is there to help us steer away from dangers. There is an icon for you whenever I specifically refer to content that neuroscience has been showing us is good and protectful of this learning environment, because there are many dangers that we may fall prey to, and we want to avoid in order for our learners to be able to swim through the waters of knowledge throughout their lives. With that, it's very important that we take some steps as the first step is to eliminate false information. And what I mean by false information here are neuromyths. Myths like the learning styles that today we know have no background of whatever scientific kind you may try to find. Another is the myth of the 10% of the brain at each time. That is, we only use 10% of the brain, and I hope you don't fall prey to this any longer. Step number 2 would be being very much aware of the principles that guide the universal aspect of learning. And here I invite you to get to know this area of knowledge that is mind, brain, and education science that gives us these tenets that we are going to see throughout the presentation today, especially at the very end, that talks about what neuroscience can reveal to us close to what psychology has been showing us throughout time for the improvement of pedagogical practices. And the 6 elements here refer to how unique the brains are, that content, the context, the different potentials change the way that we come to face challenges, experiences that we live and engage with change us morphologically and functionally. Neuroplasticity, that is the ability to adapt to the changes in the environment, is a property of our brains. We all learn with previous experience, and learning is an equation where attention and memory have to be factored into. Step number 3 would be to not only be aware of the principal universal aspect of learning, but most importantly, understand that there is individual modulation regarding the triple tenets that we all have to be careful throughout life: what we eat, how we sleep, how far, wide, and constant we move, what motivates us, and what constitutes challenges to each and every one of us. And this comes to this 4th step, that is understanding the cultural modulation that is within each different context in relation to the contents we bring to our students and the interactions that this cultural mode modulates in each one of the contexts that we face or integrate into. And finally, an invitation for you to see and to enjoy with me this presentation today. And remember that we all have our biases, we all have our boxes, and we have to make sure that we are aware of them and to be able to get out of them from time to time. And with that comes again another icon for you, and this is the muscle arm for you to show. I'm going to show you some giants, and it's because of today we stand on the shoulders of these giants that we have been able to see further, hopefully. And I'll be asking for you, after each objective, some feedback. If I were with you in person, as was originally thought out by the people who have planned this event, yes, we have been planning this event for quite some time, but the pandemic hit and now we are here, but we are together again. What I would like you to do is, in relation to the objectives, I'm going to show you 2 is it, if you are going to type number 2, cardinal number 2, if you are okay with the objectives. You are going to type cardinal number 1 if you did not get any of it. By meaning did not get, I say please, I have no hopes that you understand entirely or that you agree with me. The kind of feedback that I'm asking for you here is, at this moment, with the presentation that I'm bringing to you, were you able to understand the meaning of it as you see it? That's it. That's just the kind of feedback I'm asking for you to type in the chat box, and then we are going to be able to recap when we have time for questions. The last one is the 0. That is, Mirella, I did not get anything that you said. It doesn't matter. It just gives us some feedback so that we can cover that up again. All right? With that, we can start the first objective of the day, learners' interests and differentiation under challenges. And here I bring to you the first giant of the day, Plato, in the 4th century before Christ, one of the fathers of Western philosophy and knowledge. A student of Socrates, teacher to Aristotle. Back at that time, he already said, knowledge that is acquired under compulsion obtains no hold on the mind. And this should have steered our best efforts in learning to the importance of emotions. And here I have a question for you. Please be prepared to type in the chat box. Here you see a shelf with elements. If I tell you to write, to define what is knowledge and what is emotion, number 1, you type knowledge or emotion. That is, for you, emotions are backed up by knowledge, or the opposite. Knowledge is backed up by emotions. This is what I want you to put here. So please type in the chat box knowledge or emotion. What goes in number 1 in your opinion or as far as you know? Roberta, I need you monitoring the chat. People are typing and the answers there, please.
Yes.
The same now for number 2. How do you rate number 2? What gives support? Emotions or knowledge? Please type the answer. Knowledge or emotions for number 2? Roberta?
Most
Okay there?
people, lots of emotions, 1 knowledge, 2 knowledges, knowledge
Okay,
again, mostly
that's
emotions.
very
People
good.
are interacting.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you so much, Roberta. Because I'm giving you some feedback. I'm not letting you out of the hook. This is the answer. Knowledge would be what we put on the shelf of emotions. That is, emotions are constantly giving the support we need for knowledge to happen. And if we want our students to be able to learn throughout life, learn to learn and have this mentality, have this mind frame, we have to understand that emotions are like the rudder. It's going to steer our best intentions in the sea of knowledge. Okay, and now I give to you another giant. This is Lev Vygotsky, and back in the first half of the 20th century, he brought to us transactionism or social control theory. With that, what he wanted to say, that we have to bring learners to the zone of proximal development with mediation of content, language, that would then generate thought, where the mediator would then purposefully act through the language channel to the learners. That was the foundation for scaffolding. And here is another graph that you can see in the smart art where the zone of proximal development in teal is. So it's not out of reach. It's not within the current understanding of students. It's in between. So Vygotsky, together with Plato, have already showed us the importance of challenges being within grasp, but not out of reach, and not too easy. What can neuroscience inform us? It's not only a question of scaffolding and not only a question of mediation. Today we know that the place where we put attention will modulate performance. And here I'm talking especially to those students, those teachers, in the audience who work with language, because Bialstock has been hitting on that nail very hard. Please understand where you put your attention, what stimuli you select to bring your students, that will modulate their performance, all right? Okay, and with that, I bring to you another great giant of the day, Stephen Krashen. With him, we had many theories for language learning: the acquisition learning hypothesis, the monitor, the natural order hypothesis, the input, affective filter hypothesis, and reading hypothesis. But there are two that were really, really important to language teachers throughout the world, and other teachers as well, because language, remember, is always a medium to all other kinds of knowledge. The input and the affective filter, and this we know from learning. What can neuroscience then inform us? Please mute your mics as we can have some interference during the presentation. Thank you. So this is just a scheme for you to remember what Krashen has theorized, and very genially at that, a true giant. But what do we know today with the input of neuroscience? That beyond comprehension, it's not only I+1, and it's not only after I+1 the affective filter. What we know today is, for anything to get into the brain, we have to encode, to bring information in a positive way. That positivity in relation to the stimulus will modulate the way I'm paying attention, the way I'm encoding the memories, the way I'm storing those memories for later retrieval. So it's important to be careful, not only that it's comprehensible, but also that it is positive, that it engages the student from the very start in a positive way, because it's going to modulate whatever comes after that. Okay, with that, we have some safety rules. So what is safety for learning, and what I'm calling here optimal conditions? Please remember that optimal condition is like the Goldilocks zone, not too hard, not too easy, or not too much, not too little, just right. These are optimal conditions, okay? So to create and promote focus, please remove stressors. Any kind of stressors that we may have. It doesn't mind if your student is not opening the video at the moment, or if he's not obeying inverted commas, what we know should be there. Please remove whatever kind of, and please, I underscore the importance of what I'm saying here, emotional stressors. These are the stressors that do not have any place besides learning. Balancing, optimal stimulation, optimize instruction and content. If you give too much, if you give too fast, it won't last, full stop. And that we have to be really careful of. And how do you bring novelty then? I'm going to give you 8 suggestions, okay? Based on the work of these theoreticians that I'm doing each time I bring neuroscience up. Modulate your voice. Your voice is your instrument, and it's there for you to use it. Use it to your heart's content and to your students' best interests. Mark key points on your bulletin board. Vary font size. Change settings. Add photos to board. Prime new content. Use those curiosity hooks. My God, where is she going with those icons? What is she bringing next? So I'm priming you and I'm working with your curiosity. Proposal. Use music for starters. Change your behavior. From time to time, surprise your students. We all like a good surprise. Okay, we are over objective 1. If you are in terms of, oh, I saw that she addressed learners' interests. Now I understand that emotions give support to knowledge. Now I understand that social cognition depends on where I put my attention, because attention modulates performance. I understand that more than comprehensible and affect, in terms of affective filter, I need to encode the input in a positive way. This is the kind of feedback that I want you to give me now. 2, if you are okay. Type 2. 1, if you are, Mirella, I did not get your idea there. No matter. Type 1. And 0, I did understand the thing. That's the kind of feedback Roberta later on will tell me if any questions should be addressed at this moment, okay? With that, we go over to objective number 2, meaningful environments. And here we are going to see the importance of experience. And I cannot hold myself, because here I always, when I present this graph from the Center and the Developing Child at Harvard, I always marvel at nature and what nature is showing us from utero. Please look at sensory pathways, language in green, higher cognitive functions in blue, starting at the last trimester in utero. This is telling that the brain is organizing, is priming itself for activity while we are still in the womb. When we get to this world and we are born, you see that the peak of sensory pathways, visual, hearing, all those skills that we'll use throughout life, they peak at age 3 months. Language, it peaks at around age 7 to 8 months of age. Look at cognition. It peaks at the first year of life, 12 months into life. We are already picking on those essential skills that we are going to depend on for the rest of our lives. We really should be paying attention to what goes in the first year of life. Because later on, please look at this blue line. This is the brain's ability to change in response to experiences. And look at where it crosses path with the orange line. That is the amount of effort that you have to put into the experience to be able to bring change. The X of the matter is at age 30. Before that, less effort. After that, much more effort is needed. Let's talk a little bit then about the brain. Here I brought to you a quote from Patricia Wolf, and it says, the brain is this pattern-finding organ that seeks to create meaning through establishing or refining existing neural networks. And this is learning. Emotion, as we saw in the beginning, affects what is learned. You see how it loops back to the positive input that we discussed previously? And not only what is learned, but look at where we are heading. What is retained? That I mentioned there in objective 1, and I'm coming together with more input for you now. What is important here is for you to understand that the brain is constantly looking for patterns and finding patterns. So if you don't give the pattern, it will find one. So please notice that, because this will mark how we interact with students. Okay. Now I seem to be okay, all right, now I'm back. I thought that I just had a glitch. So previous experience. you see, it starts in neutral. And all learning goes through the filter of previous experience. And why did I use this icon? Because the Greek gods of Western civilization already told us that. And where neuroscience can help us by showing us that the brain learns with patterns, novelty. So please remember to go with your students over what is similar and where is the difference. It is no wonder that WALL-E is such a huge success with generation after generation of students, because it always brings WALL-E in different contexts. Please remember that. So, in talking about language and the importance of bringing what is previous to what we want novelty on. Children come to this world with 3 essential characteristics if they are neurotypical. If nothing there works in atypical ways. Sensibility to sounds and vocabulary combinations, inference of abstract speech, and parodies of words to objects. That is, we name. This is phonology, this is syntax, and this is semantics. Now, before a child is ready to learn, please contemplate the importance of those experiences that we are creating, especially in early childhood education, and how we are priming those students to whatever will follow throughout life. Look at what has to be in place for students to be able to read. When I say read, they are going to hear words, speak words, see words, and think about words. To do that, they will have to be ready in terms of brain functioning in attentional networks, visual networks, symbolic representations, phonological loop, phoneme grapheme, semantic recovery, semantic comprehension, syntactic comprehension, context and intonation, coherence structure at the sentence level, conceptual organization, and working memory. Isn't it a marvel? Isn't it what changes the brain every time? And remember, contrary to listening and speaking that come with us from the womb, reading and writing are cultural creations. We make sense of what is written. We attribute function to what we say. We bring meaning to interactions in a very cultural way with this skill that reading is. And not only that, for reading to take place, I also have to factor into this dimension social-emotional learning factors. Things like, am I ready to join this world? Do I have the self-worth to do it? This is the self-esteem that I'm addressing here. Social cognition. I want to pay attention and to participate in this world whose joint attention is hooked into what they read and what they write. This is the work that we have today. So students will modulate their performance to our joint attention given to this world. Again, the importance of a good, effective, emotionally safe, and robust student-teacher relationship and motivation. Remember that students struggle to learn to read, but then they read to learn throughout life. Here we talked about meaningful environments, the importance of experience. We went through brain development, pattern seeker and finder. That is what the brain does. The importance of prior experience, looking for what is the same, to move to what is different. The receptive skills, phonology, syntax, semantics, and reading neural networks. If you are okay with that, 2. If you 1, not okay at all, 0, and thank you. I'm seeing some feedback. Oh, I love that. I love when
Lots
your
of
cameras are
feedback,
open
Mira.
and I can see. Okay, cognitive strategies. I'm going to give you some definitions and directions. Here, strategies are plans for actions, but in what direction? I'm going to give you some historical direction. In the 19th century, it were the three R's. Arithmetic, reading, and writing only. In the 20th century, we started talking about cognitive skills, remember only, and learning strategies, repeat only. But that's to where we are today. We know the importance of understanding to learn. We know the importance of previous knowledge and active direction. Let's see what neuroscience can show us. From constructivism, there goes a quiet. The 20th century already told us that children build their own cognitive structures. Nowadays, we know the work of Dow is a functional organizational system, the neural system, that is progressive. And here I stress these words. It is dependent on experience, on activity to develop. With that, going back to knowledge. Knowledge to be effective, know about the world, cognition about the world, to learn about the self, to know about the self. And this has been taken as a kind of sequential activity that doesn't have to be so. Please pay attention and come with me. Know there are ways to learn about yourself. There is introspection and there is feedback. What we need now to understand is that both must be explicitly taught. How? I give you some questions, for instance, a metacognitive self-questioning. What do I already know? What do I already know about this? What do I need to know about this? How can I fill this up? Where do I start? And when you have this, you come to a moment of self-evaluation. And when I talk about self-evaluation, I cannot let motivation out of the picture. And if I consider motivation, I'm sure that in your minds, you're going to say, oh, is she going to talk about dopamine? Yes, I'm going to talk about dopamine. But I'm going probably to surprise in what I'm going to say about dopamine. Why? Because dopamine is not your typical neurotransmitter. Oh, it excites us to pleasure. Oh, it inhibits us to do no. What we know today from the dopamine system is that it modulates how we interact with excitatory actions, inhibitory actions, or potentials, if you're talking about the brain. And that dopamine has an optimal stimulation. What is this optimal stimulation? Again, Goldilocks principle. It's not too much, a lot of dopamine in the brain, but not too little either. Just the right amount. Why? Because there are two distinct functions that dopamine is catering for. First, it invigorates current behavior, and that is what motivation is for the brain. I want to stay where I am successful, where I find my goals, my rewards. Why? Because for me to engage in the next step, that is learning, I will be influenced by that. And you see how it looks back to the importance of the positive input, how we encode the input, so that also this mechanism that is very chemical and biological and is present in all of us is constantly scanning the environment, seeking for patterns where I am positive, I have rewards. It doesn't mean if they are in the short term or in the long term, but I am already gauging my ability to be successful in the experience. With that, we finished this objective where I talked about the definitions of strategies, evolution of knowledge, types, direction, effectiveness, going from constructivism to neuroconstructivism, the importance of metacognitive pairing up with cognition, and I gave you an example of questions, and to lead you to the importance of the self-question moment that will essentially drive you to what modulates our performance in life with dopamine. Please give me your feedback and tell me how you did. And finally, evidence-based principles and best practices. Here I'm basing the work on this part on the work of Professors Tokuhama, Spinoza, Lurie, and Daniel with a document issued this year. So,
Mirela, just to let you know, you have 5 minutes, okay?
On the spot. Thank you very much, Roberta. Principle number 1 that we started with when we talked about those teacher development steps that are so important is the brain is a unique organ. If it is a unique organ, guys, please use multiple approaches and methodologies. There are so many ways that we can work with students today, especially in this world and at this time that we are so dependent, for the good or for the bad, on technology. There are many ways to reflect, to do, to observe, to read. Use them all. Number 2, we have different potentials. Why? Because we come to this world at different starting points. This is genetics. So if we know that, I have to manage the learning at the individual level. I have to see where they are paying attention, really. And things like this learning management system, for example, gives us very pointedly the place where students are at, what attention they are paying to at each moment of our learning journey. The importance of prior experience. I hope I have been successful in showing to you where it starts in the womb and how important it is to modulate the rest of our lives. Please, if it's so important, let students elaborate. They have a lot within them that we may make good use of. How they can do that. Let them communicate. Use your chat boxes. Use your breakout rooms. Let them ask for help where help is needed. And let they elaborate in writing. Writing remains the utmost cognitive function for you to synthesize the information that you have and the information that is coming. Principle number 4, the brain is going through constant changes the whole lifespan. I mean, it is the only organ that changes throughout life. If it does so, we must give constant qualitative feedback to improve learning. And when I mean feed, I mean 3 things. You feed up when you have the ultimate objective. Students need to know where is your final goal. You feed back when you tell students how they fared, how they did. And you feed forward by telling them, this is the next step. Up, back, and forward. 3 different ways of feeding. Principle number 4, plasticity. It is a property of the brain. It is a constant ability to change. You don't have to do anything, huh? It comes with it. It's built in, which is good news, but use it well. To use it well, please treat expectations well. Your students will turn into what you projected. This is forever. It will stay with them. Please pay attention to that. And finally, starting with water, I had to finish with water. Depth comes before width. When we talk about memory and attention, please go deep. Create experiences that stay with students for life. They will go wide when they are ready to. And with that, I ask you to verify. I gave you 6 principles. They are on the left. And I purposefully jumbled up what I did for you in terms of best practices on the right. For us to finish this moment together, I invite you to some action, cognitive action. Please join what I said for each principle with the best practice that I gave you. You just have to type in the box. Number 1, for example, D. No, I already gave you the first. And you know, I love you all by now. And I will give you 15 seconds. That's more than enough because you are all very hype and interactive human beings. Please, 15 seconds for you to type your answers in the chat box. I will give you some feedback. 15 seconds to the clock, and there we go. If you have typed, and Roberto will later tell me this, you are well into this session. Thank you very much. And I will also ask your feedback on this. To tell you about evidence-based principles, I showed you some principles, and I also gave you some best practices. All were referenced with those references that I left for you, and please give me your feedback now. 2, 1, and 0. Okay. Please remember that the slides will be shared with you. With that, I finished this presentation showing you the compass points that I gave for you today. I told you what I was going to do, the objectives. I told you my view and perspective on neuroscience and learning, and I proposed for the left icons to steer your attention throughout this presentation, as I did for the giants that we are always have to revere and learn from. And I asked your feedback throughout the session. If you want to keep learning, I invite you to visit my website, to subscribe to this. It's a publication. In fact, there are 2 that is with, I contribute with friends from Japan in the Mind Brain Education Society. I have a podcast that I invite you. It's in Portuguese that we talk about issues in education, always in the perspective of neuroscience and the book that I mentioned. Thank you very much. And I remain with you for the next session on questions. Thank you, Roberta. That's all.
Mirella, we have one question here so far, and
Yes.
Everyone, if you have any other questions, please type in the chat box, and Mirella will be glad to answer. Right, Mirella?
Yes, of course. I will stop sharing here so that my colleague in the next moment, the break, can be with you.
Yes.
I am ready for you. I hope that you have, if you have any doubts through the feedback moments that I asked of you, please let's use those minutes to clarify any questions that you may have had throughout the presentation today. Okay? I am at your disposal. Thank you so much, Ana Clara. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Mirella, I was on mute.
Thank you,
Alberto Costa asked, Mirella, you showed that the lines in one of the graphs cross paths in our 30s. What's left for the ones who are 50 plus? Me, for example, he says. Does it mean we have to struggle more?
Yes, Alberto, it does mean that. Today we know that neuroplasticity is a property of the brain. What means we will always have that. But as with everything, in the first years of life, and this I'm talking about first years up to age 12, this is where neuroplasticity is at its peak. It's giving us all the support morphologically for us to develop the changes. And then I'm talking about physiological changes in neural mechanisms, so that we can operate with new experiences and in new environments to an optimal level. After that, the amount of effort that we have to put into the activity will be greater. But what is the bonus with that? And there is a bonus, Alberto, thank God, because we are there, right? The bonus is the knowledge that we accumulate will effectively work as a cognitive shield. When I mean shield, I mean the kind of knowledge that we put into and that we really absorb, we really acquire in the sense of acquisition that Piaget was the first to theorize about, and that today we know, talking about the brain at a mental state. And here I'm talking at the abstract, what the mind can do, okay? Biostock also talks about that, Alan Biostock, that when you decline in terms of the ability that the organ does, the mental potential that you have developed throughout life, it does not mean that it's going to decline as well. By no means. If you are not affected by any state of dementia, that is when the brain gets sick and then other states or other processes will start to operate, really ruining the structures and the mechanisms of the brain. This cognitive potential that the treasure trove that you accumulate throughout life will serve as a shield, will protect the brain and maintain the functions that it has, okay?
Thank you, Mirella. And also, André Alves Batista asked if you can give them the answers for the quiz. Maybe if you can type them on the chat box so they can have it.
Oh, I did show you, but I'm going to, perhaps I was really fast, right, guys? I'm going to initiate to you. Is it possible? And Roberta, can I recruit you to type in the chat box for me? Is it possible?
Yes.
Thank you, Roberta. Principle number 1, letter D. Principle number 2, letter F. Principle number 3, letter B. Principle number 4, letter C. Principle number 5, letter A. And 6, letter E. Please, I remind you that the slides are already in a PDF that they are going to share with you after this, okay?
Thank you, Mirella. And maybe if you can just end by giving them some tips if people want to learn more on the subject.
All right. The first place that I direct people towards here in Brazil is my site. It was created because I learned so much with the mind-brain education science. And it was such a struggle personally for me to reach that field and say, my God, that there is so much that we can learn here and put it to good use, that I developed this site, and it goes through from time to time. I put new stuff in, and I have lots of channels like YouTube, where I have lots of playlists where I put links to videos that are important for you to pay attention to. People in very different areas within neuroscience, within neuropsychology, that are spearheading efforts that we should all be attentive to and learning from. So please go to the site. In the site, there is a contact page. If you want to mail me for any questions you may have, I'm at your disposal, okay?
Thank you one more time, Mirella. That was a great talk. And now it's time for our first break. As I said in the beginning, take this time to relax a little bit, to stretch your legs, get a drink, and please connect with other participants using Wakelet. This is a networking space that we prepared for you to have the opportunity to connect with other participants, share experiences, talk about the events, and there are lots of challenges there that you can answer to interact, okay? The link to the Wakelet is on the chat box right now. You just click on the link and you can post a picture, post your I mean, what do you think, your suggestions about the talks and everything, all right? So we have 10 minutes, it's 11:04 right now. We will be back at 11:14, okay? See you soon.
Sugeriu as modificações e resolveu fazer a defesa de uma adaptação de Romeu e Julieta e Pedro e Bandeira. E eu dizendo, gente, em vez de a gente pegar uma adaptação de Pedro e Bandeira que vai ser boa e tal, a gente precisa de livros de poesia. E tem um livro de poesia que eu separado.
Hi everyone, please mute your microphones, okay?
Como é nossa escola, tipo, eu falei isso. Pra mim, era óbvio que a gente escolher esse livro. Era inquestionável. Aí
If you can mute your microphones, please.
Vamos trabalhar literatura com adaptação. Aí eu
Hi, my name is Julia Heller, and I'm a former student of Colégio Farroupilha. The opportunity that Farroupilha gave me of doing the Cambridge exams have made all the difference in my curriculum, but also in my personal development. The Cambridge exams are all very challenging and our preparation is very intense, but one of the things that this test taught me is that for us to really know how to speak English and pass these tests, we need to do more than just go to the classes. We need to apply ourselves, we need to really experience the language and try to think in English. And that is all the difference. Today, as a graduation student in chemical engineering, I see more clearly the difference that the Cambridge certificates have in my academic and professional life. One thing is that I'm always reading and searching for information and articles in English for my classes, but also many projects and events require a certain knowledge of English. So having these international certificates in my curriculum open, and I'm sure that will continue to open a lot of doors to me. So I want to thank you, Colégio Farroupilha, and congratulations for the 10 years of partnership with Cambridge.
Hi, my name is Bruna, and I'm a student at Colégio Farroupilha in Porto Alegre, Brazil, where I have been lucky enough to take part in the Cambridge learning system. Ever since I was in middle school, with the help of an amazing support system and amazing teachers, I began preparing to take these tests, and I consistently took them until 2018, when I took PCP proficiency and concluded my Cambridge journey with a C2 level certificate, which is renowned and recognized worldwide. As a senior who is now applying to colleges internationally, I am certain that the Cambridge exams have only opened so many doors for me, and they have helped shape me, not only academically speaking, but also personally. They have instilled in me a great sense of dedication and a great sense of commitment. And for those reasons, I'm just so glad and so proud to be a part of an institution that encourages and motivates their students to take part in the Cambridge exams.
Hello, my name is Luisa Haze and I'm a former Colégio Farroupilha student. Today I've been invited to talk about my Cambridge experience as well as my preparation for the proficiency exam. I've been studying at the school for 6 years and formally learned the language, but as well learned cultural aspects of the language, because the language not only includes speaking it, but also reading it and knowing facts about it. And those two aspects helped me a lot to develop my English skills, in which I now feel very confident about. They also help me nowadays, since I'm currently at university and studying to be a translator, and they help me to research in other documents or other books or other videos perhaps, to broaden my horizons and broaden my research basis. So being confident in my English skills has been very helpful to me.
Hi, my name is Julia Heller and I'm a former student of
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Roberta, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly, Alberto. Okay, so following our program, our next guest, Alberto Costa, Senior Assessment Manager Americas of Cambridge Assessment English, in his presentation, Social-Emotional Gains of Taking Cambridge Exams, will be sharing very interesting results of a research conducted with Cambridge Exams candidates, showing how the exams contribute to the social-emotional development of students. Alberto Costa is Senior Assessment Manager Americas for Cambridge Assessment English. He has worked as a teacher, teacher trainer, and academic consultant for 30 years, having also worked as a course tutor for the teaching qualifications CELTA and Delta. Welcome, Alberto. Thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Roberta. Thank you very much, Colégio Farroupilha, all the prep centers that were involved in this study. And most of all, thank you very much, everyone who has made their time to be here, to be available to listen to us. I would like to thank Mirella for the wonderful talk that she has just delivered with so much input. And a lot of the input from Mirella's talk, I think, will relate to the content that I will be sharing here. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here on a Saturday morning, right? So my name is Alberto. As Roberta mentioned, I work together with Roberta in the Cambridge Assessment English office, but my whole career has been related to teaching. I have always been a teacher, a teacher trainer, and I love everything that is related to the classroom, and I especially like professional development and assessment. I am from Olinda in Pernambuco, but I've been living in São Paulo for 5 years now. It was when I joined the Cambridge Assessment English office here in Brazil, working for the Americas, liaising with the UK, and I hope that this will contribute to our morning as much as possible, right? So the topic of today's session is social emotional gains of taking Cambridge exams. I'll be talking about this study that Roberta mentioned, and here is an agenda of the things we are going to cover today. So I will tell you a little story about Cambridge and Colégio Farroupilha, and how preparing for the exams improves your English, but how, what do we know about the impact of our exams on schools, the impact study that we did in Porto Alegre. I'm going to show you the results of this survey. Then I will talk about briefly the conclusions and recommendations that we have gathered from this study, okay? So there will be a moment for Q&A. And now we're going to start telling this story. Actually, Luciane Calcara, when she started her speech this morning, she talked about the Cambridge exams in Colégio Farroupilha. We talked about this last year when we did the Cambridge Experience event live in Porto Alegre, a place that is really dear to me. And it all started in 2010 when they implemented the Cambridge exams in the school in Colégio Farroupilha. They also became an authorized center for Cambridge Assessment English, and they also work with a number of prep centers in the region, right? Also, in 2017, there is this really successful story that we love telling, because this story has it's very important. I think it's one of those examples that we like sharing. And here is what the story is all about. Okay, so Luciane showed this graph at the very beginning. This shows the development in learners' levels of proficiency, which started in 2010. And here are some results from 2017. This means that students now complete their school years in Colégio Farroupilha, reaching level C2 in the Cambridge exams, which is a very high level. We saw now during the break from the videos that the students who have left Colégio Farroupilha are now embracing academic careers, and English is always one of the milestones that they have to accomplish in order to be able to work with other universities, to present their work to the rest of the world. The world is highly connected nowadays. So it's a very, very successful story. But this story is also the result of a lot of work. So we are here celebrating this massive success of Colégio Farroupilha, but we're going to tell you a bit more. So in 2018, we were in England, in Brighton in particular, presenting at the IELTS conference, and my presentation was about successful stories of the Cambridge exams in education in the Americas. We managed to put together 4 successful stories to present in this event. And the story that we had from Brazil was the story of Colégio Farroupilha. And it was for us a pleasure to talk about this implementation of the exams, the integration of the exams in the curriculum of Colégio Farroupilha. And we felt that this was a story that we wanted to share to the rest of the world. So congratulations, Colégio Farroupilha, and thank you for allowing us to share the story in that event 2 years ago, right? Then last year, we held the first Cambridge Experience event in Porto Alegre. Many of you were present at the event, and we felt that it was something we had to do again this year, especially now that we are celebrating the 10th anniversary of Farroupilha as an authorized center. And also last year, at the end of last year, we started this survey with learners, right? We wanted to, since we have the exams integrated in the curriculum, we wanted to investigate some things about the learners, about the curriculum, the exams, and especially we wanted to investigate what the gains were for the learners and for the school. So 2020, a very unusual year for all of us around the world, and here we are. So in Colégio Farroupilha, the exams are connected, are integrated in the curriculum, and at the end of each school year, students sit one of the Cambridge exams as a pathway to reaching C2 level by the end of ensino médio, right? So it has been a very successful story. Students feel really confident about sitting the exams, about the results. Also, there is an impact on how they behave before major exams in their lives, like Enem, for example. And of course, our lives don't stop at Enem, the entrance exams. We are faced with challenges throughout our lives, and it seems that students show a lot of confidence, right? So we decided that we wanted to investigate what we have as research for our exams from Cambridge, and we wanted to know whether or not this matches with students' perceptions of their learning, right? So what do we know about the exams? One thing we know as an institution based on research is that preparing for our exams improves English. But how? Well, the exams are a target to aim for. You have seen that we have a pathway, exams at different levels, one level building on the previous level. So there is an aim, there is a target to aim for. This target is internationally understood. We use the Common European Framework as a reference so that we know which competencies we need to develop in the learners. Also, the target is described in detail so anyone can have access to the Common European Framework. Anyone can have access to the Cambridge criteria for the exams, which are connected to the competencies in the CEFR. So it's described in detail, it's accessible to society. And also having a target or a series of targets has been shown to improve motivation. And this is vital. So I'm just going to give you a scenario. We have a guide, which we call guided learning hours, which more or less tells you how many hours of input, of study you need in order to reach certain levels in language. So let's look at level C1. According to the guided learning hours, you would need 800 hours to reach level C1. This is not true for every single learner because that depends on context, on a number of variables, right? But this is very generally speaking. So if we're talking about 800 hours, a school year, usually an academic year will have 40 weeks. And if a student has about 3 hours of English per week, that would take them nearly 7 years of study, right? So can you imagine if you want to study a language that you don't speak now, whatever that is, German, Japanese, and then you say, okay, I want to reach level C1, and you look ahead and you see 7 years ahead of you. That's a long, long route, right? And then I think we would feel more motivated if we have steps that we can climb. For example, I know that by the end of X months, I want, or X years, I want to be a A2 level in Japanese. So that would give us more motivation. That would give us a better idea of planning. And speaking of planning, right? When we're talking about the exams, it's not just the level, but a detailed description of competencies in the 4 skills. This means that we can plan to help learners develop those competencies in the 4 skills. And this planning will shape what happens in the classroom. So it helps us to plan long term. It gives us a structure to a long process. And if we are learners of an additional language, this will also help us plan all our learning and our target and by when we need to reach certain levels in another language, right? So it gives structures to a long process. That is the language content that the teacher covers, the development of the skills. There is a communicative approach underlying the exams, right? And the exam drives the teaching. This is good and this is bad. And this is why we have a warning. So the exam drives the teaching. It is positive only if the exam is assessing the right constructs, abilities, and skills. So this is one of the things that the Cambridge exams prime for. It's the right constructs to develop the right abilities and skills so learners feel confident to communicate when they leave their school years and embrace new challenges, right? But what do we know about the impact of our exams in schools? So we have here some questions that we asked ourselves, and we use those questions to kind of guide this study, right? What are the benefits of preparing for and sitting Cambridge exams on learners' attitudes towards test preparation? And also another question, what is the impact of taking the exams on learners' emotions towards forthcoming exams and their attitudes towards learning English? Well, Mirella explained here very well with a metaphor of the shelf and the books where knowledge is and where the emotions are. So we need to consider the emotions as well in order to maybe explain the success of the learners, right? So let's talk about the impact study that we did in Porto Alegre. We started, we have here a timeline, December 2018, December 2019, and then March to December this year. So what happened in those dates? In 2018, Cambridge launched this impact study of A1 movers and A2 flyers, 2 of our exams for young learners. And the study focused on learner attitudes. So we based the study in Porto Alegre on this impact study from the researchers in Cambridge and in Latin America, because it was a group of researchers and they interviewed learners from schools in Argentina and Peru. So there was a research team involved there. And this was the inspiration for the study that we carried out in Porto Alegre. So at the end of last year, the study began. So we interviewed the first group of learners. And then because of the time frame and school holidays, we had learners who sat the Cambridge exams. And we interviewed a second group of learners in this year between February and March, right? We had a group of respondents who have sat the Cambridge exams previously, and we also had the first timers. We're going to talk about this in more depth later. So March this year, we surveyed a second group of learners. We intended to present the results of this study in May, but because of the pandemic, We are presenting it now, today. And the question is, what have we learned from this study? So it is, we have loads to maybe learn from, still research on, and delve into in order to come up with more answers to this question. But here we have some preliminary results. So the methodology for this study. We had over 1,000 respondents participating in this study, which was great. So thank you very much to Colégio Farroupilha and the prep centers involved in this study, because you were instrumental in allowing us to gain access to those learners. So they completed this online questionnaire, and 74% of those respondents, they completed the questionnaire in English, right? We need to consider a number of things of this study. So the questionnaire that we presented to the learners asked them questions related to their exam experience, if they had sat an exam before, an international exam before, or if it was the first time. Test is whether or not they felt calm about the exam, confident, etc. Speaking confidence. Usually the speaking component of the exam is something that puts a certain level of stress on learners. So we wanted to check their speaking confidence as well. We also wanted to check their beliefs about intelligence. And in terms of goal orientation, we talked about planning and establishing goals, etc. We wanted to check whether the learners' goals tended to focus on mastering the language or comparing their performance with their peers, because that would have an emotional impact as well. So here we have the respondents, and we have an overall picture of who they are. Here we have the age ranges, and most of the respondents, as you can see in the graph, were aged between 11 to 16 years old. We also had other age ranges, but this is why I mentioned that the 74% of the respondents answered the survey in English, because they are so young and they could manage to express their views and understand the survey and provide answers so carefully. We also checked how many of those learners had experience of traveling abroad. So 80% of those learners had some experience of being abroad, either on holiday, or some have spent, I know, a bit more time abroad. But overall, 80% had been abroad before. And here is the exam experience we are going to describe. So, you know, as I mentioned, that in Colégio Farroupilha, in the prep centers, but especially in Colégio Farroupilha, learners sit a Cambridge exam at the end of the school year. So they sit different exams every year, and then they build this path that you can see here in the image on the right. So they keep climbing this ladder of language proficiency until they reach the highest level, which is level C2. The learners involved in this study had set mostly exams like movers, the young learners exam, flyers, but also exams at higher level like B1 preliminary, B2 first, and we also had the learners who set the higher level exams like C1 advanced and C2 proficiency, but at a smaller percentage for this group of learners, for this cohort, right? And how did the learners feel about taking the exam? Well, in terms of their attitude towards taking the exam, we can see that most learners felt calm, very calm, and it didn't bother them about this, right? Which I think is a very good indication of their confidence in the exam. But we also have another very interesting finding from this study, which is confidence about speaking English during the test. This was very positive in many ways. We can see that over 50% of the learners felt extremely very confident or confident about speaking English, so it wasn't an issue for them. They're showing confidence in their development, in their fluency, in their proficiency, and I think this was a positive result that we wanted to report. In terms of how they view intelligence, here is another set of findings that we would like to share with you. We wanted to check whether the learners believed their English ability was stable or whether they could be improved. So here we're going to show you two graphs, and we were checking learners' perceptions of their work, of their part of effort in the study. So I will never be very good at English even if I work hard. If I work hard, I will learn English well. So how did learners respond to those two statements? So here we have learners who have, for example, on the left, they have mostly disagreed with the statement, I will never be very good at English, and I will work hard. If I work hard, I will learn English. We had 64% of learners showing that they totally agree with the statement. So we see here an understanding that they have to work hard in order to learn. But we also see a growth mindset in learners as well, understanding that they have to do their part for this. In terms of knowledge, we can see here that learners responded to those two statements. My knowledge of English is something I can't change much, and I can get better at English. So how did they respond to those two statements? We can see here that on the left, learners mostly disagreed with understanding that they cannot change their knowledge of English. They understand that they can, which is good, and they can get better of English at English. We can see that they mostly agree. So there is this very clear understanding there of the hard work. I think we can translate this into a growth mindset in learners, right? Now we're going to talk about goal orientation. As I said, these are preliminary results, so we had to summarize some of the data to show here in this event. We wanted to check whether learners' goals tended to focus on mastering the language or comparing their performance with their peers. So how did they respond? We have here three situations that they were asked. It's important to me that I thoroughly understand my English work. One of my goals in the English class is to learn as much as I can. And it's important to me that I improve my English this year. So how did learners respond to this? So we can see here that, for example, they understand that every year they need to show improvement in their English. So it is, again, a case of growth mindset, understanding that they have to do their part, understanding that there is a level of challenge that changes every year. It becomes higher, and then they feel they have to accomplish that. Well, they also agree that their goals is to learn as much as they can, but they also see that it's important for them that they thoroughly understand their English classwork. I think this establishes a connection with teaching. So if teaching is clear, is well prepared, if the classwork is conveyed clearly to learners, so they feel that the growth mindset in them is better stimulated, right? Also, we are going to check their goal orientation in terms of comparing their performance with their peers. How do they view that? Do they show that they are kind of competitive, that learners doing better than them, or them showing that they have to be better than others? Is that an issue? Is that important? How does that impact self-esteem, competition, etc.? So we have three situations that we ask learners. One of my goals is to show the others that English classwork is easy for me. we wanted to check how they reacted to something like this. It's important to me that I do better than others in my English class. One of my goals is to be the best of all my English classmates. Basically, we wanted to check here, is their goal on learning or is their goal on learning to compare their learning with others? So how did they react? We can see here that, for example, for them, it's not important to do better than others in the English class. So we feel that there is a connection of maybe everyone learning kind of at the same rate or maybe collaborating with each other. We can see, for example, that their goal is not to show others that English is easy for them. I think there is a culture already that was established that the goal is learning, but not necessarily learning to show others, but to kind of show themselves that they are improving this sense of accomplishment. And also, they are not interested in being, mostly speaking, they are not interested in being the best of all their classmates. So their goal seems to be more towards learning rather than comparing themselves to their peers, right? Okay, for this study, we have some conclusions and recommendations. As I said, preliminary results. We have so much data from this study that we still need to develop certain things. So the results of the study indicated that learners that had previously taken a Cambridge exam were mostly calm and confident. This was particularly true for how they felt about speaking English during the test, right? So we see here confident or very confident, 53%, a result of lower anxiety in that respect. On the other hand, considering the data that we have shown here, we could not investigate the difference in test ease levels between the learners above that have set the Cambridge exams and the learners who have never taken an exam before or had taken a different exam because the representation wasn't very very big. We had only 4% of learners in this context, which means that in another attempt, we would need to get more learners who are first-timers so that we can investigate the difference in testees for this group of learners. The majority of learners in this study held positive attitudes towards learning, which is reassuring. It suggests that teachers and possibly the parents as well, the families, are instilling positive learning attitudes in these learners. So congratulations to the teachers, to the families. And most students believe that they could improve their English language ability and that their English could be improved with hard work. I think this is a very good point to show that they have the responsibility, their part to play in this process. Generally speaking, the learners reported positive attitudes towards learning English. Most of them felt that they were doing well in English, and very few reported that learning English was difficult for them. So I think this is something that we need to congratulate the prep centers. We need to congratulate Colégio Farroupilha for having students who are showing confidence. So they're establishing, they're organizing, they're dealing with emotions very well. Hence, they're doing well cognitively. So congratulations to you. Also, most students also reported that they were motivated to master the language, and around 50% of the students did not endorse goals that focus on proving or comparing their performance to others. So I think this is very positive attitude. It shows a number of social and emotional traits, but mostly social responsibility, empathy, etc.
Alberto,
Yes?
just to let you know that you have only 5 minutes, okay?
Okay, thank you very much, Roberta. So the results also suggest that around 30% of the students were anxious. We are celebrating lots of success in the study, but we also have 30% of the students who showed levels of anxiety they were either stressed or really stressed, right, about their exams. So we have some recommendations for teachers to help them reduce those levels of anxiety in learners. For example, teachers can enable learners to practice English in different contexts, like role plays, games, digital media with native speakers as well. Teachers can emphasize the importance of communication rather than perfect spoken accuracy, and encourage learners not to focus on their mistakes so much. We're not planning for them to be perfect, flawless speakers of the language, but we want them to feel confident in communicating. The learners that were on the video during the break, they have this confidence that they can do something with their levels of proficiency and something that is beneficial for their personal and professional lives, right? So gradually encourage shy students to speak English in class, allow solo practice, and then build up to small group work and speaking in front of the class. Avoid a high level of competition between peers in the classroom. This wasn't the case so much in this study, but it's always good to keep stimulating more positive behavior, attitudes, and familiarize learners with the test format, because I think this is a very good point, and it also helps with self-confidence. The other thing in relation to this study is that because of the pandemic, one of the things that we felt we would need with the data that we were studying, investigating, was it would be beneficial for us to do some sort of focus groups, to have like chats with small groups of learners at different ages, different experiences. But maybe this is an action point for the next moment, and hopefully we'll be able to do this and investigate more and share the data with you, because I think that everyone will benefit from this information, the school, the teachers, the learners, the families, etc., right? I would like to acknowledge the people involved in this, so Colégio Farroupilha as the Authorized Center, Escola Regina Santos em Pelotas, Instituto Cultural Santanense em Santana do Livramento, Professores Inquietos, and Cambridge Assessment English with Roberta as Business Development, Ana Bartolo as Marketing, giving us a lot of support for us to be able to conduct this study and consolidate all this information. And we are here now, so Escola Regina Santos, Instituto Cultural, Colégio Farroupilha, thank you very much. Without you, we wouldn't be able to talk to the learners, right? I think that for now, we have some references here. We are going to try and talk to Colégio Farroupilha to share the slides with you, in PDF format, so you can access the links in the references and find out more about the sources we use to conduct the study, right? And last but not least, we have a moment for questions, and I hope, Roberta, we have some questions here.
Alberto, we have lots of compliments. People really liked your presentation, but so far we do not have any questions. Does anyone want to ask anything? Just compliments, Alberto. Everyone loved the results and the presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alberto.
I want to thank the ones who are here commenting on the chat. I want to thank everyone for the compliments. I don't have a view of the chat right now, but I think I will, okay. I've got the chat here, and I can see lots of comments in the chat. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening on a beautiful Saturday morning. Thanks for your comments. I mean, I would like to say, if you don't have questions, that when I say we, I'm talking about us, Cambridge Assessment English Brazil, and Colégio Farroupilha, who put us in touch with the prep centers involved, we worked very hard and we put a lot of dedication, but also a lot of love into this very small project. I think the information that we have collected here will be beneficial both for prep centers, Colégio Farroupilha, and also for Cambridge as well. It's a way of listening to learners, and that's what we want to do. We want to listen to learners. We want to listen to their questions, queries, issues, and feed the institution with all this fantastic, invaluable resource, which is you, the teachers, the learners, and your feedback, right?
Thank you, Alberto. Lots of compliments popping up here. Thank you for this amazing presentation. As you just said, there is a lot of food for thought here, right? And this is our last break for today's event. So we'll have one more break now. Please take this time again to relax a little bit, to get a drink, stretch your legs, and be ready for our final presentation, our next presentation. And again, do not forget to connect with other participants using Wakelet, okay? We will be back in 10 minutes. It's 11:15 now. We will be back at noon with Jasmine Silver. Bear with us. And please connect with other participants. Wakelet link is on the chat box right now. See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Regina Santos, and I run a preparation center in Pelotas, Rio Grande do Sul. I'm very much pleased to be here today when Colégio Farroupilha celebrates its 10th anniversary as an authorized Cambridge Open Center. I can say that our school has been part of this 10-year journey. In 2011, the first Cambridge exams at all levels were carried out in Pelotas. And this is to be thanked. And I'd like to thank Cambridge support that highly contributes for teachers to keep updated, the partnership committed to excellence, which has given hundreds of students golden chances, and bringing a little personal to thank the opportunity of seeing year after year the sparkle in both the eyes of the little ones and the same sparkle in those who fight for the most advanced level. So thanks, Cambridge University, congrats, Colégio Farroupilha, congrats, dear friend Luciane Calcara. Hope we can continue together for a long time to come.
Hi, my name is Lisiane. I teach at Colégio Farroupilha, and in 2016, I took the CELTA course. This course is a great experience for teachers. We can learn and practice very nice techniques, but I want to share with you the main techniques and the ones that have made the difference in my lessons, in my classes. The first one, I would say, is about anticipating students' problems. When we anticipate the students' problems, they feel confident in the lesson and they struggle less with the topics we are teaching. The second one would be grading our language and giving clear instructions. The students also feel confident because they understand what they have to do. And in number 3 would be the lesson planning. After taking CELTA, I plan my lessons in a much quicker way. So if I can tell you, if you have the chance to take the course, take it, because it's worth it. Bye.
Hello, I'm a Teosa, the headmistress of a language school called Cultural Santanense, located in Livramento. We've been working with Colégio Farroupilha for many years, supported and guided by the Cambridge team, led by the knowledgeable and wise Luciane Calcara. We are grateful for having been recruited and trained to be Cambridge-speaking examiners, which has contributed to improve our staff qualifications. We are very proud of the Cambridge Preparation Center. Hundreds of students of ours are now spread all over the globe, and certainly their Cambridge certificates have influenced their success in life. Our school is recognized by parents in our community as a trustful place to take their children to study language in, and part of it is due to the fact that we are a Cambridge Preparation Center. It's undeniable, it has made all the difference. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Aline. I'm here to talk a little bit about Cambridge. So, what can I say? According to my experience, Cambridge has arrived to provide accommodation and further training for students and all educators. Of course, our school has been providing all the necessary tools, what facilitates our access. I can confess, at the beginning, it brought a bit insecurity, considering changes that would be coming. But I can say now that this insecurity has brought us better ownership and recognition. For example, the CELTA. This course is a very good example of our evolution, since we teachers can expand our knowledge inside and outside the classroom. Today we are a support team. My thanks to Farroupilha School and to our manager, Luciane Calcara.
Hi there, I'm teacher Duda, and I'm glad to be part of this 10-year anniversary of Cambridge and Colégio Farroupilha. And one of the best parts of it might be just to see my students grow into more interested, more challenged, and also more empowered users of English. The effect of the Cambridge examinations in their learning process is amazingly positive, and it's very good to be part of it and to see it in practice. I've also had the chance of taking the CELTA course, and as an experienced English teacher taking the course, I can tell that every single thing was applicable, seeing the practical side of the CELTA course and being able to apply it and to see the benefits that it had in my lessons in the classroom. It was just one of the most meaningful experiences I've had. So thank you, Colégio Farroupilha, thank you, Cambridge. Congratulations.
Okay, now it's time for our last talk of the day. Learning to learn, how to develop competent, autonomous, and reflective learners in the English language classroom with Jasmine Silver. Jasmine is a language research manager at Cambridge University Press. She and her team use data-driven methods to investigate a wide range of teaching and learning issues in order to improve the materials that Cambridge produces for learners of English. One of Jasmine's key projects is the development of the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework. So, without further ado, Jasmine Silver, welcome.
Thank you very much. All right, well, it's a real pleasure to be here, even though I'm so far away from you. I'm in rainy Cambridge today, but it is a real pleasure to be able to speak to you nevertheless. So as Roberta has introduced, I'm going to be talking about learning to learn today. And this really builds on the other presentations we've heard. So thank you very much to those presenters as well. This is really going to be very much in line with what they've said, but taking a slightly different angle. So please bear the other presentations in mind when you watch this one, and please also take part. So feel free to write down any ideas you have as we go through the presentation and any questions. We'll have time for questions at the end. Right, so any presentation really needs to start with the why. So why should we develop our learning to learn skills in our students? So if you have any ideas of your own, please do add them. I've thought of this in two kind of ways today. So first of all, if we have students who are very competent in learning to learn, they're going to be successful in their studies, they're going to be confident, they can get over their anxieties, and they're going to be reaching their potential. And this could be in everyday class situations, but also if you think about exams, having good learning to learn skills is really going to help your students get the most out of their school time. And of course, that helps them set them up really, really well for their future lives. But also, if we fast forward to your students' lives a few years from now, when they're in careers or they're taking part in other activities in the world, having learning to learn skills is going to be really crucial, that they're lifelong learners so that they can get the most out of their careers, they can maybe retrain or adapt to new types of jobs. And wider than that, wider than their careers, that they can face issues and challenges that the world is going to throw at us as the years go on, be able to adapt to those, be able to learn how to deal with them in the best possible way. So learning to learn is really, really a key skill for us. But what do we need to do as teachers to help our students develop these learning to learn skills that they can take beyond our school life or their school life into their futures? So I've thought of three key questions that we're going to be addressing today through the presentation. The first is we need to understand what we mean by learning to learn. the first step, really. If we don't understand what learning to learn is, then we can't really teach it effectively. Then we also need to understand what our students need. So it might not be the same for every class. Some students might already have a lot of the skills and need work in different areas than another class that you have. And finally, how can I teach these skills in my classes? And we're going to be showing you some examples of how you can do that throughout. With this as well, please do add any ideas of your own. All right, first of all, what is learning to learn? And it would be really great if you could type in the chat box now any words that come to your mind when you think of learning to learn, or it can be more than a word, it could be a sentence, any phrases, and I'll keep an eye on the chat box to see if we've got any ideas. Hearing, adaptation, absolutely. Ownership, yes. Strategies to remember, autonomy, taking your time. Learning process and techniques, organization. Yeah, absolutely. And what we can see here is that there's a really wide range of topics that are included in learning to learn. Discipline as well, I see in drive. It's such a wide topic. So how do we understand what goes into learning to learn and what we should be teaching our students? A few more there, which are also really good. So what we've done at Cambridge University Press, along with Cambridge Assessment, is to come up with the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework. And this part is particularly interesting for us today, the Learning to Learn section of the framework. So we've taken all the research and the existing frameworks for all these different things that you were talking about and tried to condense it down into one place so that teachers can understand what it is that they could be teaching in their English classes and how they could be doing that. So this is part of the whole Cambridge Life Competencies Framework. You may have heard of it, but if not, or if you would like to have a look at our new style booklets that have just been released, please go to our website, which is cambridge.org/CLCF. There you can find a lot of information about what the framework is and the different aspects of the framework. Today is just about learning to learn, but you can see we've got emotional development, critical thinking, collaboration, lots and lots of different skills, and we show how that they can be introduced into your English language classrooms. All right, so let's imagine that we have the booklets in front of us and we've opened up our Learning to Learn booklet, and this is how we break down learning to learn. So there are lots of different ways you could do it, but this is the way that we found the most useful. So we've broken it into 3 core areas. Developing skills and strategies for learning. We definitely had that in the chat box. Taking control of own learning. So ownership, autonomy, independence. And finally, reflecting on and evaluating own learning, which very much fits again with some of what you've been saying, and also metacognitive strategies that were mentioned earlier today. And in the booklets, we then take this down even further, break it down even further into what we call components, which you can see on the right-hand side. So for each of these core areas, we've broken those down into sections to show what that's made up of. So if we take a look at the middle one, taking control of own learning, we can see that it involves setting goals and planning for learning, taking initiative to improve own learning, managing the learning environment, and managing attitudes and emotions. So let's take one more closer look. There's one extra level of detail that we have in the booklets and the framework, and that is to show what these look like at different age groups. So we know that learning to learn is not going to look the same at pre-primary level than it does at work. So just for an example, at pre-primary level, taking initiative might look like asking the teacher to clarify something if they've got, if they need help for anything. At secondary level, it might be a bit more complicated, and it would be about producing a revision plan for key skills and knowledge in a really systematic way. So by the end of secondary, we would hope that the students could be able to do this. And once they're at work, it might be setting achievable language learning goals. So maybe related to a specific exam or specific skills. So hopefully you can see the framework can help teachers understand what they could be teaching their students, and it's a really good starting point for that. So once that is clear, then you can start planning to include more learning to learn in your classes. So here are just a couple of tips for that. So when you're planning your lesson, you usually have a language learning objective. Also think about having a learning to learn objective and be specific with that. So the breakdown I showed you before in the booklets is a really good way of choosing something specific to focus on. Just like you wouldn't say, I'm going to teach my students English today, they're going to improve their English, because that's not specific enough. It's also not that helpful just to say, I'm going to improve my students' learning to learn skills. So use that framework to pick out something specific, for example, a component that you want to work on. And once you've done that, you can have a look at an activity that you can either use that's already in your plan, or perhaps just add in a little activity that will allow students to practice this particular learning to learn objective. So I've just got here, again, a screenshot of the summary of the framework and just some tips on how you could use this when you're planning your lessons. So first of all, conduct a needs analysis. So as I said at the beginning, not every student, not every class will be the same. So it's really good to assess your learners' current strengths and weaknesses. And if you know the class well, you might not actually need to think very hard about this. You might already have a good sense. But if not, you could set them on a task and have conversations with them to find out where their strengths and weaknesses lie. And then you can see how your current curriculum or scheme of work has opportunities for you to work on those particular parts of the framework. So I'm sure you're familiar with the traffic light system, red, amber, green. You could do that with the framework. I'll just show you a quick example. So if my students are quite good at engaging in directed activities, so they're good at following instructions, they finish tasks, they get to the end, they do their homework, those kind of things, then I could mark it as green, thinking, okay, they're quite solid on that. Maybe when it comes to finding, keeping and retrieving information, they're reasonably good, but could do with a little bit more support. So I would put amber. And finally, I might think, for learning and retaining information, my students are forgetting everything every class. I'm not sure if you've ever experienced that, but certainly in my teaching experience, it was a common problem. They've got so much input, and the next time you see them, they've seemed to have forgotten everything you taught them the last time. So that I might mark as red, and then I would choose that to focus on in my lessons coming up in the next few weeks. So let's have a look at that and what it would look like when planning for the first core area. So developing skills and strategies for learning. So imagine also that I've highlighted that memory strategies maybe are a little bit lacking in my students. So what could we do? I would suggest that you start to build up a toolkit of strategies with your students, so that you are introducing effective strategies for language learning, and those are available then when students do their own self-study at home and revise for exams, for them to pick up and use again. So if you've practiced them in class, if you've introduced them, then students will be more likely to use them on their own because they'll feel more confident with them. And luckily, you're already doing lots of these things. So thinking about language learning, there are so many strategies involved that are just naturally part of what we do as English teachers. So you teach strategies for reading, you teach students how to read for gist, or how to find particular details, how to scan a document. Same with listening, writing, how to structure an essay as you get to the upper levels, how to use signposting language. You might have your own grammar and vocabulary strategies that you introduce. So all of those can belong to the toolkit. But I just want to talk about some more memory focused ones, and I'll need to get you involved a little bit as well for this. So according to research, how effective are these learning strategies in terms of helping our students to retain information, so remember information? And you can, if you want to, you can rank them all 1 to 7. 1 is the most effective, 7 is the least effective. Or if you just want to type in the box, maybe the one that you think is most effective or least effective. And I'll just explain a couple of them while you think. So the first one is highlighting. For example, I have an exam and I have all these grammar points that I need to remember for this exam. So I'm going to highlight the key points from my textbook to help me remember those things. Summarizing. So again, I might have a big page on the present perfect and I'm going to summarize it. I'm going to keep it just to the key points. Self-explanation. I'm going to sort of teach myself. I'm going to explain to myself what this grammar point is. Practice testing. I'm going to get a previous exam paper or really any kind of question that's going to test my knowledge. Distributed or spaced practice is I'm going to space out my study sessions throughout the week instead of having just one session or just a few sessions quite close to the exam. Rereading, so if I've got my page on grammar again, I'm just going to reread all of that, maybe a few times. And elaborating, so asking myself why. So for example, if I have a sentence, he goes shopping, I should ask myself, why is it not he go shopping? And that would help me remember the third person S. So we have a few ideas here already. So number 1, practice testing. So that's what we think might be the most effective. Number 2, elaborating. Any other ideas on the most effective and the least effective? Okay, you've got summarizing as well as a popular one. Maybe just one more. Practice testing. Okay, so practice testing is winning. Oh, self-explanation. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so really good. We're going to reveal the answers now. So the number 1, as a few of you pointed out, is practice testing. That has the most robust evidence base behind it, and it's consistently coming out on top as the most effective strategy. It's interesting because when I was studying myself, I always stayed away from practice testing until the end because I thought, oh, I haven't learnt enough to do well on the practice testing, so there's no point yet. But actually, research says, no, start from the beginning, start with practice testing, because the fact of just trying to remember the information, even if you fail, is strengthening your memory for that information. Because when you then check the answer, you're very focused on that answer and you are more likely to remember it the next time. So practice testing number 1, followed by spaced practice. So spacing out your sessions. Elaborating, asking why is really encouraging some deep thought. So that comes up really high as well. Self-explanation. Then we get to summarizing. So it's not saying that summarizing is not helpful, but it's just not as, it doesn't have quite as much evidence behind it that it's a really effective strategy as practice testing. So if you had to choose 1 or 2, you'd probably choose practice testing over summarizing. And right at the end, we've got highlighting and rereading. And again, when I was a student and I wasn't aware of these learning strategies, I did a lot of this. I did a lot of rereading and a lot of highlighting of notes and felt quite good about it. And that's the problem, because they feel good. It feels like you're learning as well. It feels like you're remembering, but actually you're not as effectively as if you took a practice test. So how can we integrate this into our learning? There are some really nice resources. If you are not aware of this website, I'll just introduce it to you quickly. The Learning Scientists, they have 6 effective strategies here. And they have PowerPoint presentations that are very simple that you can show your students. But they also have posters that you can put on your classroom walls, and even bookmarks that you can give to your students to, put in their textbooks, or stickers, I believe, as well. So I really recommend them. It's based on cognitive psychology evidence, so it's not just made up like the learning myths we talked about earlier. These are based on evidence. All right, so as we said, practice testing, otherwise known as retrieval practice, it doesn't actually have to be a test, is the #1 strategy that seems to be effective for our learners. So how can we use our normal teaching to bring in some ideas? So imagine you have been introducing your students to some vocabulary, maybe the previous class, and these are the vocabulary items at the bottom: monument, bridge, cinema, and so on. And you want to help your students remember them, because it's unrealistic to think that unless they've studied really hard before your next class, they're naturally going to remember these words. So one idea is to spend 2 minutes, get your students to have 2 minutes to write down all the places that they can remember that they learnt last class. So have the books shut, no talking to anyone, but be careful about making it seem friendly as well. So maybe an idea I stole from Mirella's presentation would be to play like an upbeat piece of music for 2 minutes. And by the end, they have to write down as many as they can. Or perhaps just be very clear with them that this is not a test. You don't want to know how many they've got right. They're not going to tell their friends how many they got right. It's just for them, and it's just a memory strengthening activity. It's not actually a test. So once the 2 minutes is up, they can check with the textbook. They can open it back up, check which ones they got right, which ones they made a few errors on, then get a different coloured pen and correct, and then also which ones that they couldn't remember. And again, they would write down the ones that they couldn't remember. And like I say, the evidence suggests that the things that they forgot are likely now to be more strengthened in their memory. So it's actually, you can tell them it's good that you've forgotten, because actually now you have a chance to strengthen your memory. This would be a bit of a pointless exercise if they naturally remembered everything anyway. So those are some ideas. Just to say that you can use this nicely as a starter for your lesson. So it can be a quick, right, let's go, put on some music, 2 minutes. It can also be used as a filler, so between different parts of your lesson. It doesn't take long, and you don't need to prepare for it, which is the best thing. If your students are a little bit anxious at the beginning, even though you've told them this is not a test and it's just to help you strengthen your memory, you might start with giving them little cues or clues, maybe giving them the first letter of every word so that they've got a little bit of help. And as they get used to the activity and used to the fact that it's not a test, you can try with no cues whatsoever, because it, again, evidence suggests that it's more effective when you don't actually have any help. And like I say at the end, keep it low stakes. So you don't want to know their score. This is not the point of this activity. It's just for them. They can keep it completely private. And again, setting it up as a brain strengthening or memory strengthening activity. All right, so other ideas for retrieval practice. Use your textbook. Sometimes your textbook will have ideas of how to make flashcards and things like that. So that's a really good place to start as well. And online flashcard systems as well, I've used with my classes a lot. So I've just put 3 down here. You might have your favorite, but Kahoot, Memrise and Quizzes are all really good memory kind of training devices because they're all getting this practice test idea. They're all training retrieval practice. One little point to make about these is they are sometimes set up to be more of a competition, especially Kahoot and quizzes. So just be careful about how you set it up. As was mentioned earlier, we don't want to make it too competitive all the time. So just bear that in mind. And what I suggest is with all these ideas that you have, you can get your students to make up a portfolio or a toolkit, you can call it, of different strategies. So maybe you have a website for the class that has different areas for different types of strategies. You can have like listening strategies, reading strategies, but also memory strategies and any other strategies that you come across. And then when they come to do their own practice and their own revision, they can use this website as a toolkit to pick out what they are going to find more useful. So that's just a very quick set of ideas for developing skills and strategies for learning. But now I want to turn to taking control of own learning. So how do we get our students to be more autonomous and more independent learners, which is always an issue, I know, from my own experience as well. So the first thing I would say is just setting your students off. I don't know if you've tried this, but I certainly have. Just giving them a lot of freedom and saying, do extra work or do take initiative, choose what you think is best, is not that effective for a lot of students. For some students it will work, but for a lot of them it isn't. It doesn't. So it's good to give them support. And these are some ideas of the support you could give them. So goal setting is really important for taking control of your own learning. If you know where you're going, that is a real foundation for choosing how you're going to get there. But you need to know where you're going first. So encourage students to set SMART goals for their learning. So this could be about an upcoming exam. It could be about this unit. Depending on what your lesson is and what your activity is, it could even be for that activity or lesson. But you don't have to use it all the time for every single activity. Just choose ones that seem appropriate. So just in case you don't know about SMART goals, they have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So for example, if you get your students to do a presentation, you might have a student make their own goals by saying, okay, I'm going to, my specific goal is being clearer in my presentations. And the way I'm going to measure that is by using signposting language. And I'm going to use like firstly, secondly, in conclusion. It's achievable because I'm just using those 4 or 5 words and I know them. It's relevant because last time I did a presentation, I got feedback that it wasn't that clear. And time bound, well, I have a presentation next week. So we know by that time I need to have done that. But you can set smaller time goals, like I'm going to have a first draft of my presentation by tomorrow, and it's going to include these 5 things. You can do this, as I said, at the beginning of a unit. So instead of skipping over the first page of your textbook, which I have been known to do, use it to help students set their own goals. So at the bottom and the bottom left, you can see you always have the vocabulary and the aims, and that can be a really good starting point. So if you have any ideas about how to use this opening page of a unit to help your students set goals, please share them in the chat. And in the meantime, I'll introduce a couple of things here. So the first thing is you have a set of vocabulary that you know you're going to learn in this unit. You know you're going to learn about family and friends, but you might already know some things about family and friends. So similar to the task we had before, you might say, right, I'm going to give you just 1 minute. Just think about all the words you already know for family and friends and write it in a circle. So it could be mother, father, sister, brother. So that can be your first step. So you know where you are, and then you can think about where you want to go. So one idea is to use a KWL chart. And this looks a little bit like this. You have a column with what you already know. So those words that you've just decided that you already know, you can put in this column. But then you turn to what you want to know. So maybe you want to know the word for stepmom or stepsister or cousin. And obviously, because it's vocabulary, you might not be able to write this in English yet because you haven't learnt it. So there is no harm in using your first language, so for example, Portuguese, for these charts, especially for lower level learners or when it's about vocabulary. And then when you get to the end of the unit, you'll fill in the final column, which is what I actually learnt. So you reflect back on whether you met your goals that way. All right, so have a think about if there are any other ways you might use that first opening page to set goals. Once you've set the goals, you can get quite excited that you've got a goal and feel really motivated. And then sometimes when we actually get to the goal, we fall down and don't meet it. So again, we can give our students support in planning for their goals to really help make sure that they actually do what they want to. So it seems really simple, but encourage your students to commit to a regular time to study. What I've done in the past is given students a timetable, a blank one. You can put the weekend in as well, I haven't here, but a blank one of all the time that they have available in the world. And then they have to colour in the squares that they know they are not free. So when they're in class, they colour it in. When they're on the bus, when they have dance class, when they're eating at home with their family, for example, they colour all of that in so that it's showing as unavailable. And then they commit to the same time each week to put aside for English. And you can decide with them how much that should be, if it's 3 times a week or if it's once a week. But getting them to commit to this and following up and asking, were you able to study this Monday at 9 a.m. like you planned, is really helpful. But you can go a step further, and when you set homework or plan for revision, when students are planning their independent learning, encourage them not just to write down what they have to do, but write down when they're going to do it. So that could be using their timetable, where they're going to do it, and how they're going to do it. So it's almost like transporting them into the future when they're going to do their homework. And also think about the obstacles they might face. So if they know that they're going to be distracted by their phone, get them to think about that in advance. And psychology research suggests that if we do this, if we think about the obstacles first, and if we think about how, when, and where we're going to do things, we are much more likely to do them than if we just say, oh yes, I'll do that homework before the next class, and we're more vague about it. So when you have the students back in your class, follow up with them and ask students to share their examples, because that can be inspiring to other students. So these obstacles that I talked about, I thought we'd just have a quick go if you would like to take part. You can talk about these with your students. These are common things that might happen when they plan to study, but don't quite get around to it. And the idea is that they're going to pick one or two when they plan and finish the sentence. So can you choose one of these and finish the sentence? And while you think about that, I'll just give you an example. So number 1, if I get distracted by my phone, I'll give it to my mum, or I'll mute my phone, absolutely. Really important, yes. Yes, for our kids as well, absolutely. And actually for us, so I've been experimenting a lot with goal setting and planning, and especially now working from home where I don't have people around me in the office. I've been really focusing in on goal setting, and this really helps me. So yeah, feel free to try this yourselves. Any other ideas? Yes, absolutely. I agree. For us too. Yeah. So number 5, if I get stressed, yeah, I'll take a 10-minute break, stretch and have some water. Yeah. Number 3, if I procrastinate, I'll think of my goals. Absolutely. Have them written down and then in a place that you can easily see at the front of your book or somewhere else, and then look at those. Number 5, yeah, I'll stop and listen to a relaxing song. Absolutely. And like I said, follow up with the students. So the next time they're in, you can ask them, how did it go? Did you get distracted by your phone? And then they might say, you know what, I put it on mute, but then I just picked it up and I pressed unmute and it didn't really work for me. And that's fine. And you say, okay, well, does anyone else have any other ideas about how to make sure I don't get distracted by my phone? And maybe someone will say, give it to your mum, or put it in a room where you can't see it, because just seeing it often prompts you to want to look at it. So make it clear to the students that it doesn't have to be perfect. They might make these plans, but they'll have to add to them and think about them as they try them out. So taking breaks and walking, lock it in the closet, yes, and give the key to someone else. Yeah, and write a list with my main points. Really good ideas. Thank you for sharing those. All right, so I just want to turn briefly to the final section, which is reflecting on and evaluating learning. So a few ideas for evaluating progress. This is really hard because whenever we say to leave time at the end of class or a series of classes to evaluate learning, we always run out of time. But it's really important, maybe announce to your students at the beginning, the last 10 minutes or the last 5 minutes or the last 3 minutes are going to be for us to evaluate progress, so that they know that that's your plan and you are going to, that will make you more likely to do it. So absolutely, if you can, leave time at the end. What can you do in this time? Well, you can use it to complete one of those KWL charts. So they've written down what they know, what they want to know, and now it's time to write down what they learnt at the end. And also do a little evaluation exercise. And these are really, really quick. And again, if it's more suitable for your students, they can be done in their first language. It doesn't necessarily have to be done in English unless your students are very confident and can do this quite quickly. Or if you want to give them a bit more time, you can ask them to do it for homework, I guess. But 2 ones that I've used, 2 stars and a wish. This is usually better for slightly younger students. So you write 2 things that went well and 1 thing that you would like to improve in the future. So that's your wish. It's the same thing for WWW and EBI. It's just for slightly older students, they might feel it's a bit more grown up. So what went well and even better if. So you write down what went well during the class or the series of classes, and what could I do next time that would be even better? What didn't go quite so well this time? And we talked over today about confidence and anxiousness and growth mindset. It's really good to make sure that students don't just focus on the negative. So when I set this, for example, I always ask them to put more WWW than EBI because that's better for our confidence. So, and they need to recognize what they are doing well. So I often have 2 WWWs and 1 EBI, just like 2 stars and a wish. And encourage your students to think about what they've learned in terms of the content, but also how they've learned it and anything that they can improve. And those 2 strategies there can really help doing that. All right. Evaluation is more collaborative. Sorry, I can't always see the chat, but yes. So Jamboard, I haven't actually tried that, but I'll check it out after this. If you can do that collaboratively, and if you have the right collaborative atmosphere in your classroom, that can be really good as well. So just to show you what it might look like with a unit test, we have these in a lot of our books, and when we're preparing for exams, instead of just having the score at the end and thinking, oh, I got 22 out of 30, that's okay. onwards, let's move on to the next one. You can do 2 stars and a wish or www and EBI here. So for example, you might say, actually, I've learnt my vocabulary really well. I did really well in that. And that's probably because I learnt some of this through spaced practice, through retrieval practice. This is your ideal student, obviously. But the grammar, I wasn't that, I got a few wrong there. And to be honest, I think that's because I didn't really understand it in the first place. So even though I studied it, I didn't have the right foundation. And then get them to think, what are they going to do about making it better next time? So maybe I'm going to talk to someone in the class who I trust. Maybe I'm going to ask the teacher, or maybe I'm going to go online and take control of my own learning that way. And there's so many YouTube channels nowadays on this grammar point. Maybe I can find one that's going to phrase things to help me understand it better. All right. So those are just a few ideas. I can see more coming on the chat box as well. And I would love to continue the conversation after this presentation too. But just to leave you with something to do after this presentation, why not download the Learning to Learn booklet from the website that I've given and choose one area to develop in your students. So it could be memory strategies, it could be more type of evaluation ideas, and then choose or adapt an activity that you can integrate these learning to learn competencies into. So it might be adding just a little task like the retrieval practice tasks, or maybe you've already got something in your textbook that you can just bring out learning to learn in a little bit more. And finally, reflect on and share your experiences. So share it with your students, but also share it with other teachers. And maybe you can find out some more interesting ideas of different ways to do retrieval practice, or different ways to get your students to be more independent, set goals appropriately, and so on. So really do share your ideas, because it's so much more interesting and motivating to do that. All right, so I will leave it there for now. Thank you very much for your attention. I know it's been a lot of information over this whole event, and I hope some of those things might be useful to you in your teaching. And really happy to answer any questions and yeah, have any comments, what you think about these strategies, and whether you've learnt, whether you've used any already in your classes and how they've gone. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. So far, we do not have any questions on the chat. Let's give them some time.
Mm-hmm.
Just some compliments. People really liked your presentation, Jasmine.
Oh, thank you very much
awesome
for your compliments.
presentation. Yes.
Yeah, we should be able to share the slides as well, I think.
Yeah. Wonderful ideas, techniques, and examples. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you very much from Instituto Cultural Santa Nancy. Okay, so we have a question here, Jasmine. Hi, Jasmine. This is Alberto asking, how do you see the framework of life competencies moving forward?
Well, it's constantly developing, actually. We are constantly getting feedback from teachers and looking out for the latest research. Science is changing all the time, so we're constantly updating it. So the framework itself will be updated as things change, but we're also working on quite a few new additions to that framework. So, for example, we're going to be putting more teacher guidelines together to help teachers integrate these life competencies into lessons and how to assess them as well. So we will have assessment guidelines. And in fact, we're also working on a framework to develop life competencies for teachers, because we know that the best foundation for teaching life competencies is to be confident in them yourself, and we can all develop our life competencies more. So lots of exciting projects that you can hear about. If you look on our website, cambridge.org/CLCF, there's a button there that says take part, and you can sign up there to find out when new developments come out, and we can let you know. And you can also take part in surveys, feedback surveys, and things like that if you like.
Okay, so we have some more questions coming up here. Maria Eduarda asks from Colégio Farroupilha, she asks, you talked about the different age ranges. What about the different contexts? For example, regular schools, language courses?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't broken that down in the framework itself, but the message is really that you as the teacher know your context the best. So we haven't tried to cover all contexts, all different contexts in the framework, because you can use the framework as a starting point and then apply it to your context. So maybe in some contexts you have very, very limited time, and you can only, and it's not, you can't introduce quite as many strategies as if you had lots and lots of time. So really think about your students and your context. I think you probably know it better than we do.
Jasmine, Patricia Demier asks, adult students sometimes complain about attention deficit. Any practical suggestions?
Okay, well, it depends what exactly they mean by attention deficit. So if it's things like your phone, distractions and not being able to focus on things, then think about strategies. You could use those contingency plan ideas to say, okay, in this class, unless we need our phone for something, we're going to put it completely out of our sight. We're not going to have it in sight at all. But it could be ways of structuring your class. So if you have an hour-long class, it doesn't mean that you have to be at the same, concentrating at the same level for all this time. If they're on a long task that they're struggling to focus on, cutting it down to short chunks can help, giving them a break in the middle. If they're at home and struggling to focus, it's good to have contact with someone else who's doing the same thing and checking in on each other. Again, setting goals, saying for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to be writing my first paragraph of this article, and then you check in with them afterwards. Some people even do this. I've done this actually over video call. So we're both working and we can see each other working, but we're focusing on our own things. And then after 25 minutes, 50 minutes, we check in with each other. So it depends. I'm not sure if that's fully answered the question. Feel free to answer a follow-up one, but in those contexts, those are some ideas.
Okay. One more from Luana Silva. Thank you for all the great tips. Have you ever worked with dyslexic students? If yes, have you used the same things?
That's a really good question. Yeah, so I have had dyslexic students in my class, particularly in secondary school. I taught quite a lot of secondary school. These strategies are actually really helpful for students with dyslexia because they are strengthening things like memory. So often you'll find that strategies that are good for that are just good for dyslexic students are also really useful for all students. So these strategies are really helpful. Also things like writing down instructions so that you don't have to hold too much in your working memory. Also, I found worked really well. And checklists, like the goal setting stuff, is really, really helpful for dyslexic students. And having checklists, you can get them to make their own, or you can give them, and as they go through that can be really helpful. Again, not having to rely too much on keeping lots of things in your working memory.
And one final comment from Alberto. He says life competencies for teachers will be most welcome. Excellent news.
That's good feedback. Thank you. Yes, we will let you know. Again, if you sign up on the website, the email will come from me actually at the moment. So I will let you know personally when that is available. It's in progress at the moment.
Thank you very much, Jasmine, for this wonderful presentation as well. We had a great event and you helped us a lot to make it even better, okay? So Cambridge Experience is heading to its end, and we would not make this event possible without the support of many people and many institutions. So we would really like to thank Colégio Farroupilha, Cambridge Authorized the Center that this year is celebrating its 10th anniversary. So congratulations one more time, Cambridge University Press and Cambridge Assessment English. Thank you to everyone involved, everyone that helped organize the event. And for all of you that participated and kept with us and paired with us throughout the whole event. Stay tuned to learn more about our future events. In a few days, you will receive an email with a survey. And please make sure you answer the survey in order to receive a certificate of attendance, okay? Now, before we end, I'd like to ask you all to open your cameras so we can take a picture of everyone that participated. Rafael? Tudo certo? Everyone with your cameras open. Tell me when you are ready. Rafael, tudo pronto?
Okay, just wait a second.
Okay.
Okay, yes, everybody, yes, Rafael. 1, 2, 3. Cheese.
Cheese. Wordle.
Yes.
Okay.
We could have more. Okay. Thank you.
And you can continue to connect with the participants through Wakelet, everyone, and Escola de Professores Inquietos platforms. Please use the platforms of Escola de Professores Inquietos to continue to get information, get more news, and keep connecting with other participants through Wakelet as well. Thank you again, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for this wonderful event. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.